It is a pleasure and always a privilege to be here on your platform. I'm constantly aware that the audience that I'm speaking to are very evolved, and therefore I would rather put a disclaimer right at the beginning that I am a student, still young, still learning, and much younger in experience and much poorer in experience than all of you all. So kindly forgive me if something is not spoken in the right sense, because I'm not a student of Vedanta, but I have tried to kind of draw parallels to what emotional intelligence and emotional wellness that we talk about, how it has a parallel theme running in our scriptures. I'm always very interested, though I feel that my understanding of all of that is limited. And I think as we grow and as we mature, we become richer in experience and wisdom. So, in anticipation of borrowing that wisdom from all of you through this exchange, I would like to start with a small activity. And I would invite all of you all to participate in this activity as we move on. Okay. Um, for this activity, we would be required to sit back, sit comfortably, and uh, close our eyes and then follow my instruction. Okay. Post which we will do a little bit of discussion, or I would love to hear your experience. Okay. So let us begin. Let us all sit comfortably with our spine erect and no crossovers in our body. So if we are crossing our hands, let's just open. If our feet are crossed, let's just open. And relax ourselves, close our eyes in anticipation of something new that's coming to me, with the intent of something good that comes to me today. And as I close my eyes and sit, I withdraw myself from the world outside and I look within. And as I look within, I focus on my breath. Just become aware. We are not breathing in faster or slower or longer, just our regular breath. The breath is warm, the breath is movement, and warmth and movement are both life. And with each breath, as my body starts relaxing, I thank it for everything that it has done for me, for my heart that has kept beating tirelessly for all those years, for all those internal and external organs which have perfectly, impeccably done their job until now and will continue to do so. And with reverence and gratitude, when we thank our body, let us bring our conscious attention to the emotion that I am feeling right now. What is it that I feel? Is it one, or are there two, three emotions, shades, and combinations? And as I become more aware of what I feel today, right now, let me also ask myself, what is that one big emotion that I have experienced in the recent past? Worry, anxiety, anticipation, anger. happiness, surprise. And as this awareness comes to me, and as I access the feeling, note where in your body does this feeling come from? Is it localized in an region or in an organ or in a part of your body? Is it in many places in your body? Where exactly do I feel this one strong, pleasant or unpleasant emotion that I have recently felt? Acknowledge this feeling, allow it to be there. Think about what is it that you did when you felt this emotion? What action followed the feeling? And as this awareness comes to you, slowly bring yourself back into the present. Feel the chair on which you sit on, the floor beneath your feet, the clothes on your body, the sounds around you. And breathe in and breathe out. And when you feel ready, very gently open your eyes. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this activity. I would like to invite one or two responses to just tell me what were the feelings that you felt and where in your body did you feel them. You can respond on the chat window, or it would be much better if you mute and talk to me. You can raise your hands so we can call out your name.
Dr. Venkatachalapati wants to say, please proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Anagha. This was a nice experience of 5 minutes. Then how people can go involved into their meditation and they become calm and all mind will be tracing only on breathing.
Yeah.
So other things they will not come into our mind. So there's a very short of meditation. Thank you much for us taking into the action.
Thank you. All right. So, was there anybody who experienced an emotion, a strong emotion that you felt recently? And where in your body did you feel that emotion coming from?
This is Malti here, and I thought I felt a wonderful surge of peace and calmness, and I think I felt it literally rising from my heart area.
Okay, from the solar plexus, from your
Yes,
core up. Okay,
yes.
rising from. All right, excellent. Anyone else there to just give us another maybe insight into what went through you and your mind?
Chandragupta is saying calmness of the mind.
Calmness of the mind. Where did you feel this? This is the emotion that you felt, but where did you feel it in your body? Did it exist in a single part? Did it exist in different parts?
Chandragupta ji, you can type or unmute and speak.
Thought. Okay. So it was here. It was, now you see, it was not localized in a part of the body or a region of your body, but it was somewhere in her thoughts, right? And I would therefore like to bring this to everybody's notice that we are not our bodies alone. We do take our bodies for granted. We don't take enough notice, care of, or listen in, tune in to what our body is trying to tell us. The body's way of telling us things or communicating with us is probably discomfort, aches, pains, distress, muscle rigidness, etc. Itches, skin problems, etc. is our body's way of communicating to us that it needs attention, right? But along with our bodies, we are not limited by our bodies. We also exist in our thoughts, correct? And therefore, sometimes we feel what we feel in our thoughts, just like um, uh, Chandragupta ji said just now. Okay. Now, with this understanding, let us move ahead and try to understand what emotions are. I'm sure we all know what emotions are. We all know that we have several emotions, and emotions are feelings, and we alternatively use the terms emotions, feelings, and moods. And although they are similar, they may not be the same. However, we are not entering into the technicalities. So we have various emotions, and we experience various emotions through the day. Okay. And it's a range that we experience every day. We go through several emotions every day. All those who watched the match yesterday would have gone through a lot of emotions, right? And all those who are reading the news today are also actually hurting and feeling the heartbreak of our players as well. But yes, the emotions are there, they are present for a reason in our body. Okay, the emotions are our alarm system. Okay, just like when you have an itch or when you have an ache, it is your body's way of telling you that, hey, this needs attention. Emotions are also your alarm system. It tells you that there is something that needs attention. There is something that is not in the right balance and requires you to pay attention to it, focus on it, and get things to find the balance and bring it back to a good optimal state, homeostasis again, right? I also asked a question when we did the activity, and that was, what did you do? What was the action that followed that emotion? If you had felt happy, what is it that you generally do? If you feel angry, what is it that you generally do? When you feel an emotion, go back and think, what is it that I generally do? Correct? If I see a tiger in front of me, or if I see a snake in front of me, and I don't feel the fear, will I react? Maybe not. Will I run? Maybe not. And therefore, emotions are important for us to be able to understand that there is something that is not okay, and therefore, so I say I'm very stressed. There is so much stress in life, but am I doing anything about it? No. And then I'm going to reach a state of burnout. So, stress in my life is a clear indication that my mind space, my physical space, and my body and mind are together showing me, telling me that something needs to be done, something is not okay at this point, and something needs attention. This is just for us to understand that a lot of times we lack the emotion vocabulary. And this is something that I do with young children as well, because we are sometimes not even aware of, we've been conditioned to say, how are you? Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Right? But fine, good. When I ask children, they say, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling nice. These are not emotion words. Okay, so emotions are many. And like you can see in this wheel, there are 7 basic ones that which we can see inside. Can you see my pointer, or do I need to point a laser? Okay, yeah. So there are these 7 major emotions which are inside, right? And then there are different shades of them as you go out of the wheel. So in angry, you have so many words which we can use in order to express ourselves in a very articulate manner. But sometimes when we lack this vocabulary, it is difficult for even me to understand what am I feeling and what is the degree of that emotion. When we talk about emotional awareness, it is very important for us to also understand that I'm feeling fearful, but how fearful? I'm feeling angry, but how angry? I'm feeling sad, but how sad? Am I feeling vulnerable? Am I despairing? Am I guilty? Am I feeling hurt? Right? Am I feeling empty, remorseful? These are words which are helpful in order for me to understand my feelings. Okay, it's not about me being able to tell others what I'm feeling. More so, it's about me realigning my emotions in my mind to be able to understand what is my emotion, what is the intensity of my emotion, in what shade do I feel it, and is it only one or are they a combination, right? And as we saw just now in the activity that we did, each of us have a different subjective, unique way of experiencing that emotion. If I ask someone, where do you feel anger? They may say, I'm feeling it here. Some may say, I'm feeling it here. Some may say, I'm feeling it in my stomach. Some say, I'm feeling it in my fists. So there are different ways in which every different person experiences these emotions. So every emotion is very unique to that person, right? And therefore, when we deal with people and when people have emotions, it becomes very difficult for us to deal with those relationships, right? It's difficult and at the same time very, very beautiful, soulful, right? Because when you connect with people, it is organic, it is soulful. But when we are struggling in a particular relationship, it can become very complicated because of the a lack of proper understanding and language which we can use to communicate with each other and sort our issues out. Okay. Now, there are some specific classic characteristics of emotions, and that is emotions are universal. And when I talk about emotions, I'm always reminded of the three great sages in our mythology. One of them was sage Durvasa, the other was sage Jamadagni, and the third was Gautam Rishi. And we all remember, and then they're known for their, short. They were very short tempered. They are known for their that trait. And we know how Gautam Rishi had cursed Mata Ahilya, and we know how Rishi Jamadagni had ordered his own son Parshuram to behead his mother. And Rishi Durvasa, who was so impatient when Lakshman refused to go in and tell Ram when Ram had ordered Lakshman to stay out of his room. And we have several such examples. So for people who are so learned, who've accumulated so much of wisdom, and who are so centered and grounded, and I mean scholars, they're great people. They have attained what we call as siddhi. And despite that, they were not really all the time in control of their emotions. Of course, it does not mean that they were, throwing curses at everybody that they met, but there were situations which were out of the ordinary situations. Like Gautam Rishi's anger in that situation where he sees his own wife with someone else is not inexplicable. However, what the whole incident shows us is that at that point of time, even a learned person like him lost out on the um, ability to see things as they are, ability to judge, clarity of thought, patience, holding on. All of that was lost in that one moment of emotion, right? And later it is said that he regretted it, and then it had to be, Mata Ahilya had to wait for so long before Sri Ram could come and relieve her of that condition, right? But therefore, I say emotions are universal. Each of us has all of these emotions. We feel all of them. We may be able to control, regulate in some situations. In some situations, we may not be able to. However, they are there. They are omnipresent. They are all the time there, and they are there for everybody. And that brings me to my second point, which is emotions are always present, right? It does not mean that once an emotion comes, you can't feel it. But you're feeling something or the other at all times, right? Sometimes you're feeling nervous, sometimes you're feeling accomplished, sometimes you're feeling good about, happy about what is happening around you. Sometimes you're neutral, but there is some feeling that's always there in us and around us. Emotions vary in intensities, they depend on the triggers. Sometimes some triggers are again very unique. Some people are very particular about punctuality and they become extremely upset and anxious or worried or restless or angry when that is not followed. So, different people might have different triggers, and therefore, different triggers also have different intensities of emotion. The magnitude of impact is also different. How it makes you react, how it makes you feel is also different. And like I just was talking, that it is uniquely manifested in different individuals. So I may feel it very differently in my body than you may feel it in your body. And therefore, my reaction and response might be very different from your reaction and response. We must have seen this many times when say a death occurs in a family. You see different people reacting in different ways. Some are very stoic and poised, and they're just, holding it all in, while some are absolutely inconsolable, right? So it does not mean that the person who's not crying is not feeling the grief. It's just that the manifestations in different individuals are very different. Are there any questions still here? No? If there's anything on the chat, please let me know. I'm unable to see the chat window.
Okay, there is nothing in the chat window, Anagha.
Okay. So we shall continue. Okay. Before we continue, I'd like to ask all of you a question. And that would be, what are those 3 to 4 emotions that I desire freedom from? Please feel free to put your responses in the chat window or even unmute and speak to me. What are those 3 to 4 emotions that you would like to have complete freedom from? Anger, okay. Only anger?
Worry also, I think.
Worry, yes.
Fear,
And stress.
fear, happiness.
Very good. Fear. You would not want freedom from happiness, won't you? Would you?
No.
We would want happiness, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. But we want definitely freedom from anger, fear. How about hurt?
Anxiety.
Yes. Anxiety, yes. Anxiety is a kind of fear, yes. Jealousy, all right. Is there anything else on board? Okay. We shall take these. And these are the most commonly, tagged emotions. These are tagged, it's not good, they are bad, or things like that. We've been conditioned over years to understand that, oh, I must be able to control my anger. If I'm not able to control my anger, I'm not a good person. I cannot feel jealous. It's a bad emotion. It's not so good emotion. It's an unpleasant emotion. And of course, fear and hurt come from within. It's instinctive. We want to avoid fear. We want to feel safe, right? Now, here's what we are going to start with. So there was this disciple, again, in an ashram. Guru and the disciples would every morning go down to the stream and they would, bring water and finish their rituals at the side of the stream and then go back to the ashram. And on one particular day, the Guru asks a particular Shishya to come and he says, okay, you've got to take this boat and you have to go to the other side of the stream. And when you go to the other side of the stream, you will find this particular jadi booty. So you collect that and you bring it for me. And the Shishya says, all right. Then the Guru says, but be careful. because you have to row your boat upstream. It will be a lot of work. So it's not going to be as easy as you think. And this young boy starts in his boat and with the oars starts rowing upstream. And there's a lot of effort that goes on in going upstream. And just when he is about to reach that other side, that particular area that his guru has instructed him to go to, he sees another boat. And this another boat is traveling in his direction. Okay. And now he starts feeling anxious. He starts feeling more than anxious, angry. And all these different emotions start coming into him. And I have, taken so much of effort to reach here. Now I'm just about to reach, and there is this boat coming from opposite direction. Can't they see that I am here? Shouldn't they move away? They are traveling right in my direction. Why should they do this? This is so unfair, etc., etc., etc. Probably all those combination of anger, jealousy, maybe not jealousy, but anger, frustration, worry, anxiety. What will happen? I will be pushed downstream, then I will lose my way. I don't know how I'm going to overcome this situation. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm out of control. And all of those things start clouding his mind. And then as the boat comes closer and closer and closer, this boy gets fully ready to, give it back to this other person who is rowing the boat in his direction. And as he approaches the boat, or as the other boat approaches him, he notices that there is an empty boat. There is nobody in the boat. So maybe that boat has just drifted from somewhere and is going downstream, and this guy is going upstream, so they just meet. And then he realizes that, was there someone really on the other side? Was he becoming angry because of someone on the other side? Or was it his own anger? Right? So when we talk about anger, anger is mostly created from within. What makes you angry? If I ask you, or you ask someone, the ideal answer would be what the guru told the shishya. So this shishya goes back and he explains the whole incidents to his guru. And he says, I felt this. And then the guru tells him this, that, the anger was created in you. Nobody made you angry. It was an empty boat. There was no other person there. Nobody made you angry. Nobody has the right to make you angry or the ability to make you angry. And you should not give the right to anyone else to make you angry. So where is anger coming from? Where does our anger come from? Our anger is created. It is coming from within. I do not want to give anyone else the power to make me angry, do I? Where do I feel the anger? I feel it here. If I cannot control what is here, if I cannot regulate what is here, what's the point? Right? And the Shishya understood a very big lesson in his life that day. And he said, and he realized that it does not mean that I'm going to be able to conquer anger. I will feel angry, but I will feel angry with the awareness that it is coming from within me and that the other people have done nothing. Right? So nobody has the ability to make me angry, but I do this to myself. And when I do this to myself, I will tell you what happens in the later half of our conversation. So we go back to our slides. Self-awareness. Now, this is what we were talking about. What am I feeling? In what degree am I feeling it? Do I have the vocabulary to explain to myself what's happening with me? Then understanding the impact and becoming more mindful of my thoughts and my feelings. Right? And even the Vedanta says, is what I've read. Self-awareness may be achieved through introspection and self-inquiry, which is what we did. A little bit of it maybe in the first activity. We asked ourselves, where in my body do I feel this emotion? When did I feel this emotion? What did I do after I felt this emotion? Right? So it's an understanding of all of us have unique softwares, right? So I'm not going to respond the way you respond, and you're not going to respond the way someone else responds. So understand metacognition, thinking about my own thinking processes, thinking about my own response mechanisms, thinking about my own coping mechanisms helps me understand myself better. And that is self-awareness, right? And this is interesting, wherein it says it encourages individuals to go beyond the surface of their thoughts and emotions to discover the true nature of the self, Atman, right? And when you read psychology, of course, whatever is written in the Vedanta is a little bit in between psychology and philosophy, which is great. But if you look at it from the lens of psychology, it is very relatable and it is very doable. And it looks like, it seems like it's written for every person, common people. So this knowledge or wisdom is not for only for the evolved or the enlightened, but it is there for everybody to absorb. Right? So when they say discover the true nature of self, what does it mean? What is Atman? It is my inner self. It is my inner child. Now people are calling it by various names. This is what our scriptures have been telling us from centuries, right? So self-awareness is important. Self-awareness. How do I feel? Where do I feel it? And what are my triggers? What is my repertoire of responses? All of that helps me understand myself better and my emotions better. And that is a very, very, very critical part of uh, emotional intelligence, or I would say intelligence itself, right? Because if you don't know yourself, then what do you know? And how do you deal with the life, deal with situations in your life, right? And then we move on to managing emotions. So now the guru has made the Shishya aware of the empty boat. He's told that people around you are like that empty boat. They are doing nothing, right? They're just drifting on their own flow. You happen to barge into them, you happen to bump into them, and you are creating those emotions within you without understanding that this outside is not in your control. So, in trying to control what is not in your control, am I not losing control over what I can control? Yeah. So I can control this. So can I control this and not allow myself to lose control over this by trying to control that which I cannot control? Am I making sense? Yeah. Okay. So what is managing emotions? Now, we've understood that boats are empty and we are creating it, but how do we manage it? How do we regulate it? Because we've known that there is a permanent presence of emotions in our life. Emotions are universal. We cannot do away with them. So, how do I manage them? How do I regulate them? Right? So, what does that mean? Ability to stay calm under pressure, adapt to the changing circumstances. You all have lived about 40, 50, or 60 decades of your life, right? And you would have definitely undergone a lot of situations where you had to stay calm under pressure, when you had to adapt to changing circumstances, additions or deletions from the family, sending your children away, empty nest syndrome, um, marrying your daughter and sending her away, another avalanche of emotions, I would say. Bringing in some other person into your daughter-in-law or son-in-law into your life, into your family, and establishing those interpersonal relationships. All of this has required managing of emotions on a very large scale. And I'm sure all of you all have done it beautifully. Right? But what does Vedanta say about emotional balance and resilience, about managing that? Right? By understanding that the self is beyond changing emotions, to accept that life will happen, things will happen, we lose some, we win some, Okay, and when we win, we will be happy. We will have a high tide of emotion. But when we don't, when things don't go our way, there will be a low tide, and I will feel what I feel, a complete unconditional acceptance of happiness, grief, good things, adversities, sadness, all guilt. All of those emotions will be there, right? And it takes a range, a rainbow of emotions for us to be able to appreciate life fully, right? So, therefore, individuals can maintain a sense of inner peace and equanimity in the face of external challenges when I know that there is this emotion. This is a low time. There will be unpleasant emotions. Emotions can be extremely painful, hurtful, very overwhelming sometimes, but they are not fatal. Can we all agree there? They are not fatal. And that's what the Vedanta teaches. Nothing lasts forever. Kalaya Tasmai Namaha. Everything is healed by life, as by time. As time progresses and life happens, we learn to move on. Our scars might remain, but the wounds are healed. Right? So, what connection does it have with managing emotions? Right? How do I manage emotions? Do I suppress them? Do I fight with them? I just let them be. I just understand that it's going to be there for some time. It's going to take some time to go away, but I will learn to live with it. Correct? I'm sure you've loved and lost, right? All of us have lost someone in our lives whom we loved dearly, but we've moved on. Do we not miss that person's? Yes. Is their absence felt? Very much felt. Is their presence missed? Very much missed. But we have evolved from lamenting their death to rejoicing and celebrating their life. Right? So we all are phoenixes. And that's how we learn to manage our emotions. Emotional intelligence plays a very, very healthy part in empathy and interpersonal relationships. Okay? Now, here's where I would like to tell you again a small story. Yes. So there was, I read this story somewhere. Um, there was a person who was a little weird, was a little different than the other villagers, but he used to live on the outskirts of the village, and he would every day lock his farm and he would go out. Now there were a lot of people who were in who would like to make fun of this person. Okay, and they would make fun of this person and they would try and tease this person many times in many ways, and every time they did that, this person got perturbed and there would be a fight and there would be something happening and there was some excitement. In those days when there were no TVs and no phones, people had a lot of time for creating such excitement, and there was a good sense of camaraderie in the community. And this person would all the time get worried and irritated and annoyed, and he would give back and engage in those unpleasant these things, and then would lament that nobody likes me, they always make fun of me, nobody wants to be friends with me, and he would sit down and lament about all of these things that would happen to him. And then one day he found a wheelbarrow full of dung deposited on his front door. And when he came home, he got so irritated with that. He got his own wheelbarrow, filled all the cow dung into it, and went around the village looking for the person who had done that. But guess what? He could not find it. So he left the wheelbarrow like that. The next day, when he came home, he found another wheelbarrow full of dung dropped at his front door. Again, he got very irritated. He picked it all up and he took two wheelbarrows this time around the village, trying to find who's done this, but could not find it. The day three arrived. Again, there was a barrel full of dung left in front of his door. And again, he gathered all of that, put it in a third wheelbarrow. Again, took three wheelbarrows around the village, trying to find and give it back whoever had done this, I want to give it back to them. But unfortunately, could not find anyone. He tried keeping a watch, he tried a lot of things, but he would not understand, he would not be able to figure out what has happened and who is doing this. On day 15, he was sitting by his platform, feeling very tired, with a barrel full of dung that he had just picked up from his front door. And he was feeling very sad. Why are people doing this to me? Why should I only be at the receiving end? I have not done anything to anybody. Why should I be receiving all this dung? Why should I, what should I do with it? Why are people behaving so badly with me? I have been such a good person. Do I really deserve this? Life is so unfair. Do you resonate with these thoughts? Have we all thought like this at some point of time in our lives? Yes, right? And then it occurred to him. And then he cleared up his backyard and he started depositing all the wheelbarrows of cow dung that came to him in that backyard. And he sowed seeds and he planted stuff there. Okay. And he would water it every evening when he came back. 15 days later, he had a thriving vegetable patch in his backyard. The dung kept coming, the dung kept going in the right place, and the results were there for everybody to see. And eventually, the dung stopped coming. Right? We are all receivers of this cow dung in our life. The question is, do we put it in the barrel, take it around the village, try and give it back to people from where the dung comes, or do we put that dung to good use? This dung is a symbol, the cow dung is a symbol of the feelings that arise in us because of the situation around us. What do I do with those feelings? How do I channelize those feelings? How do I respond in those situations? Right? That determines the outcome. Okay? The outcome in the first case was the front yard was full of wheelbarrows, full of cow dung, stinking. His hands were dirty. He was tired, frustrated, angry, and his emotions were invested in the wrong place, and his action was invested in the wrong place, and all the resources were lost, including energy. But in the second half of the story, we see how a change, a shift in his response led to a better outcome. Does anyone have anything to say here before we move on? Okay. So we move on to understanding how empathy and interpersonal relationships are also related to emotions, right? The ability to understand and share the feelings of others is a key aspect of emotional intelligence, right? So, building positive relationships and effective communication are also emphasized. Empathy and interpersonal relationships is what? Us being able to understand what the other person is going through, us feeling that feeling and being there for them to be able to build that relationship. Without empathy, we cannot build any relationship. And the same thing has been told in Vedanta. Vedanta encourages compassion and understanding in interpersonal relationships, recognizing the same divine essence, Brahman, in oneself and others, fosters a sense of interconnectedness and empathy. If I have the same unconditional positive regard for me and for you, and if I consider the both of us equals, then I am all, the God resides in me and the God resides in you. And therefore, we both must be equally respectable to each other. We must both love each other, and thus empathy is generated. We were not required to be told that, you should have empathy. Then only interpersonal relationships will work. We already had it in our culture. That is, that uh, every person, God resides in every human being, and therefore have that positive regard for every. Different languages, same concept, isn't it? Yes. Emotional intelligence also fosters mindfulness and being present in the moment. If you remember, I had shared a story of a young child who lost his father sitting by a pond and thinking about how things were not going his way and feeling sad about it. And then a sage walks past and he says, "What is it that is upsetting you?" And the little boy tells his story that I lost my father and I had so many dreams and my mother is sick, I don't have resources, etc. And then the sage takes this boy to the pond and says, "Okay, throw a stone in the pond and see." And there are ripples. So the boy looks confused at this sage and he says, "What are you saying? It's ripples. How can I look at my reflection?" So the sage says, "Okay, then let's wait." And when they wait, the ripples die down and the waters become steady and the reflection becomes very obvious. And in that moment, the child is able to see his reflection well, and that represents clarity of thought. So when there is emotion overpowering ourselves, then there are ripples, there are turbulent waters. And unless these turbulent waters settle down, we cannot reflect well. Okay, there is pun intended. We cannot reflect well if the waters are turbulent. So mindfulness is being in the present moment without judgment. And that is a central theme in emotional intelligence. The more we practice mindfulness, the more we will be in the present moment. Whether in the present moment you're feeling neutral, you're feeling happy and excited, or you're feeling sad, or you're grieving, or you're hurting, does not matter. But being mindful of what's happening within me, being mindful of those sensations in my body is very critical to emotional intelligence, because then I know that this is not the right moment for me to think or take a decision. This is not the right moment for me to talk. Maybe I need some time to myself in silence, calm myself down, allow the wave of emotion to pass, and then engage in the communication, or then engage in that family activity or activity at work, so that I don't lose it, or I don't allow my emotion to override my sense of judgment. Okay. Uh, Now, you would all know that Vedanta teaches the importance of being present in the here and now. The idea of nowness, now, is emphasized as individuals are encouraged to recognize the eternal nature of the self beyond the fluctuations of time. This is so interesting. And even in our lives today, even if we don't use this philosophy, we still say that everything is pointless after a point of time, right? So everything is meaningful in that moment, in that frame of time, correct? So the idea of nowness, we exist now. This is where I exist. My past is in my imagination. It's in my mind. It's in my representation. My future is in my imagination, in my representation. What I have now is just this now, present here, right? And when you are practicing mindfulness and when you are able to bring yourself back to the present moment, then that is emotional intelligence and nothing else. So I think that if people are talking about emotional intelligence now, but our ancestors have been talking about all of this from I don't know how many centuries ago, from the times back and beyond the fluctuations of time. They've been telling us this, and the knowledge, resources is available to us. Unfortunately, with our limited sense of understanding, we have not been able to absorb it. But I've always said this, that the way the Vedanta teaches us psychology, philosophy, or any other subject, none of the present day scholars can. With due respect to all of the present day scholars, though, freedom from ego identification. This is again one level ahead of our everyday living, right? Emotional intelligence involves recognizing the role of the ego in shaping thoughts and emotions. Here, the term ego is very central to psychology. Ego from psychology, not the ahamkara or ego that is spoken about in Vedanta. But ego in psychology is yourself, the inner self, one part of your inner self, If you know Freud, you would know that he's described the inner self in ego, superego, and id. Id is more childlike. Superego is the ideal representation of self, but ego is that realistic thing that tries to balance between the raw emotions and the ideal these things. So the role of ego is shaping thoughts and emotions, and ego is what encourages individuals to move beyond ego-driven reactions. What this means is we all have an ego to protect, okay, in psychology, and we cannot so there are ego defensive functions that we develop in the course of time. Something that's going to cause deep hurt to me, I deny it. So denial is a kind of um, ego defensive function. You would have seen in some cases when there is a shocking thing that happens in a family, some people don't react. They have a very cold or a very emotionally labile state because it's not sunk in. They are still in denial. Their mind has not processed what has happened, and hence the inability to emote, express, come to terms with what has happened. So, that is an example of denial in terms of emotional intelligence in this context. Vedanta teaches the transcendence of ego to realize the true self, right? So, we have to overcome the ahamkara. We have to break down or go through the ahamkara to reach the inner self, which is the Atman. So, by understanding the limitations of ego identifications, individuals can experience freedom from the ups and downs of the emotional roller coaster. Now, how do you get freedom from the ups and downs of the emotional roller coaster? Again, this does not mean that there will not be ups and there will not be downs. There will definitely be ups and downs. However, with acceptance, with understanding that this is what I'm feeling, this is what it's going to be, and then nothing lasts forever, it's going to go away, is something that will give me the resilience to hold on, right? And therefore, we come to how emotions and physiology are related. When I experience an emotion, and this is what I was saying, when I carry that anger in the first part of our presentation, I said, when we carry that anger or when we feel that anger, our body's symmetry is disturbed. We start breathing in a pattern, right? So when the breath is not rhythmic or symmetrical, the symmetry of the body is lost. And when the symmetry of body is lost, your psyche is broken. And when your psyche is broken for a long period of time, many times the biology breaks. So when your body is telling you through aches and pains and other things, listen to your body, because this has happened after the psyche has broken and after there is some emotion. So they say that behind every ailment, there is an emotion, right? So your resistance, your immunity also depends on how you are able to manage your emotions. Okay. So emotions affect the body and the breath. And when these both are affected, the symmetry is lost. Okay. So let us seek, I hope I'm on time. Let us seek to regulate, not to control. Yeah, so we must be able to tune in and tune out. What is it that I'm feeling? Why am I being snappy today? What is it that has not gone according to me? Which is that emotion which is manifesting itself like this today? We should be able to ask ourselves that and gain that self-awareness. So let's aim to regulate and not to control the emotion, to express freely yet safely and not suppress the emotion, and to accept unconditionally all emotions and not question. All emotions are valid, all emotions are necessary to be felt. And with that, I'd say that allow your children and grandchildren also to experience these emotions. When a child cries, we quickly say, "Don't cry, we'll get you another toy." Or "Don't cry, it's okay." We are we are stopping the process of them experiencing their emotions. We should rather label the emotion and say, okay, this is what you're feeling. I know it feels like this when you lose some toy or break some toy. It's very important for us to allow ourselves to experience these emotions so we are able to label, understand, and then deal with them. And that is all we need to know in order to be emotionally intelligent. Because emotions are omnipresent, all the time present, and we keep feeling them all through our lives. And with that, I come to the end of my part. Thank you.